ask you to pay close attention to what our next speaker is saying, because I'm going to unmute someone after the chat and have a quick chat with you, like a hawk master. So make sure you pay close attention to what is being said. Anthony Ubin is saying, hoping for some Spanish learning tips. Andy, you're taking away from my intro. Can you not do that, please? Okay, so again, let's get this going. Why do our everyday habits hold us back from achieving what we want? For the past 8 years, Kristina has dedicated her life to Spanish language and helping individuals and business grow with her expertise. She started the first Spanish-speaking club in Moscow and has worked with 3 presidents. Maybe what's holding you back is your own limiting belief. Check out this keynote and be ready to be inspired. Kristina has asked me to tell you this. Get your notebooks out, have your pens ready and prepared to ride high. Please welcome on stage, Kristina Sharykina.
Imagine you're standing in front of a big door and you're about to step through to something very precious that's waiting for you on the other side of this door. You have been struggling for this since you were 3 years old. And now, this big door is your final step to enter a new world without any inner limitations. What is there behind your door? Dear Toastmasters and the most welcome guests, last November, I was literally standing in front of my big door. I wasn't alone. I was together with my big partner, a horse. I have been riding horses since I am 3 years old. And that big door was to the riding arena where I was meant to compete for the very first time in my life. Even though I have quite a lot of experience in horse riding, last November was my first possibility to compete. And as it might happen to you in some moment of your life, I was literally trembling and my hands, they were sweaty. And I asked my trainer, Paulina, who was standing next to me, Paulina, trainer, will you say something to me before I compete? Kristina, come on. Just go there and enjoy. Ah, yeah. Don't forget to smile, because judges like when sportswomen smile. To be very honest, I'm not sure about whether they really liked my smile, because afterwards on photos, I look like a paralyzed, smiley woman. So Paulina pushed that big door and the show began. Wait, really? Am I telling you the story after facing so many limitations? Well, basically, a limitation can be absolutely anything in our life, right? So in my case, my biggest limitation were my habits. My habits blocked me and stopped my development as a rider. So today, guys, I really want my speech to be not a monologue, but a dialogue with you. And I would like to share with you my own limitations and the way I was facing them. At the same time, I would encourage all of you to think just for a couple of seconds about one limitation that you're currently facing. And please, let it be a dialogue. Write it down into the chat right now. What one limitation are you currently facing? I understand that you probably are not very comfortable sharing with us your limitations, but then please write it down for yourself on the paper, but most importantly, write it down. And while you're thinking, I would also let you reflect a bit what is really there behind your door. So John, I would need your help now. What does our audience say about their limitations? What kind of limitations do they face?
I think it's all about confidence, actually.
Confidence. Okay, some other kind of limitations, or they are basically all about confidence?
Fear of failure, lacking time, fear of success. This all sounds like confidence to me.
Okay, John, thank you very much. Guys, I must be very sincere. I also faced this kind of limitation, like a lack of confidence. And to be very honest, I have been carrying this obstacle for many years till finally I start to see my habit, my limitation, my obstacle for what it really was. And only then could I approach my big door. So for example, in the last year, we know that we had to change a bit our mindset from something very comfortable, like our everyday life, to something very uncomfortable. But as a result, today we are here, we are all together. And today, in my speech, I would like to share with you 3 main steps of how to face your limitations. And it's much easier to do it together, right? So let's get on our saddle together and let's ride high. So I began riding horses when I was literally 3 years old. And horse riding began my lifelong hobby. My first stable was situated not very far from my home. It was a huge stable, very famous in Moscow, and it became my second home for over 20 years. I'm 29 now. I already knew everybody and everything there. I even used the same road to go to and from my stable. The point is that both environments and places sometimes become our habit, and they start limiting us. I will give you a different example. So we are Toastmasters, and of course, we all have our home Toastmasters club. Remember how you feel when, for example, you present not the first, not the second, but let's say the 10th project in your home Toastmasters club. So you're very comfortable, you know everybody, you're literally on the stage. But remember the moment when you had to present in a different Toastmasters club, or even worse, you had to present outside of Toastmasters. My gosh! Eventually, I had to breathe in a new air and to adjust to new circumstances. Both your home club and my stable are our comfort zone. In our comfort zone, yes, we are super comfortable, but we don't learn because we already don't have possibility to learn. I remember that in some moment, I thought to myself, do I really have to change my stable? What for? For me, it would mean to pass through my comfort zone, where I feel very comfortable, to my fear zone, where I obviously wouldn't know what to do, what kind of actions to take, where to go, how to do things. Thanks God, I have an incredible trainer in my first stable. She was very strict, very to the point, and she said, Kristina, here in this stable, you're stuck as a rider because we don't have professional horses for you to grow. Kristina, you must leave the stable, find a different one. Because listen, to ride high, you must go high. And I left my stable. And here I was, without any people who I knew in the area of horse riding outside of my stable. Because the point is that when you're very inside of your limitations, of your habits, you basically don't have possibility to get acquainted with other people. And that was the moment when I was already in my fear zone and I had to learn a new skill, networking. Thanks to Toastmasters, I already knew something about networking, so that was the best moment to go further. And I randomly remembered about a friend of mine, so-called friend, who was riding in a different stable with more professional horses. And she said to me that, of course, I could join her in that stable. And I began riding in a more professional stable with another trainer who I'm going to call Jane. To be honest, Jane didn't seem to be very interested in me from the very beginning. You know, I sensed it. Jane, you know, my lifelong dream has been to compete. Would you help me to prepare for this moment? Probably, maybe in some moment. But Jane, I don't know how to do so many things. Could you please explain to me? Why, Kristina, just do things by yourself. What's the problem? Just while you're riding horses, try to do things. The problem was that we had absolutely different visions with Jane. Every time I would ask her about something, she wouldn't explain things to me. She would even laugh at me when I made a mistake. I was already in my third zone, so-called learning zone.
Kristina, you've muted her. Yeah, that's okay.
Basically, habits are very bad advisors, especially when you're already in your learning zone. Because in your learning zone, you're facing many difficulties. You will face even more difficulties that you might have ever faced in your life. And you might depend on opinions of other people. You might find yourself excuses of not to do things. But guys, this is the moment when you must pick yourself up. You must focus only on your dream and on your goal and to go further, despite anything, despite all of your limitations. Hello, Jane. This is Kristina. Jane, we are meant to have a class today, will we? You know what, Kristina? No, because all the horses are busy for you, and I have many other clients. You know what, Jane? Then I won't be able to assist your classes anymore. Because to ride high, you must go high. And I left that stable. And here I was, absolutely disappointed. I remember I was about to burst into tears. And the question was, how to find this inner power to go further? How do you guys find this inner power to go further? England is famous for many things, and among them, obviously, horse riding. To be even more precise, classical dressage. I would always compare classical dressage with a couple dance between a rider and a horse. I would also compare classical dressage with public speaking, because in both disciplines, you have to direct. A rider directs a horse, whereas a speaker directs the audience. But most importantly, they work together to dance together. Around 3 years ago, when I was very inside of my limitations, I learned about her. She is the current classical dressage top rider of the United Kingdom, and her name is Charlotte Dujardin. She's an idol for me, and I really appreciate everything she does. And every time she would compete, I would ask myself, how can she be so calm? Afterwards, I would read that Charlotte, before she competes, she would say, just the same old stuff. It's just a different arena. And I absolutely like this attitude, and I would like to apply it in Toastmasters. The question would be, how? Even though Charlotte would always be very calm, she actually faced a lot of her inner limitations. And one of her limitations would be media. Media who would always comment on her in a very negative way, and as a result, it would feed into her own limitations. And she would start hearing this inner voice saying to her, you can't do things. To struggle against this inner voice and to find this inner power to go further is quite difficult by itself. But when you are a top UK rider, when you represent a country globally, internationally, finding inner power might be even a more tricky thing. So together with your psychiatrist, Charlotte would be working a lot on herself, and she would learn that one of the greatest tools to overcome your limitations is called awareness. Awareness, guys. To be more precise, awareness of how our brain works in the moments of stress. To be even more precise, this is incredibly important when you are in your learning zone. Dr. Stephen Peters began working with the British cycling team back in 2001. And after that, this guy, he was a psychiatrist, he released a book called The Chimp Paradox. By the way, a very interesting book. In that book, he described that our brain is divided into 3 parts. The human part, which is responsible for rational, the chimp part, responsible for irrational, and the memory part that handles memory. But also, we have gremlins. We all have gremlins, guys. And gremlins are our negative beliefs that come into our way when you want to do things. In horse riding, a rider directs a horse with muscles. So for example, if now you are courage enough to stand up in front of your screens, so if you stand up in front of your screens and you try to tense all of your muscles, but literally from your feet till your neck, till your head, so you try to tense your muscles and you try to move some parts of your body, it won't look nice, right? So just imagine that somebody is trying to explain you something being so tense. In horse riding, it's impossible. Because in this case, your horse, when you are tense as a rider, your horse wouldn't understand what to do. The horse would be even afraid of the rider, would try to escape from this pushing energy of you. So absolutely the same happens in public speaking when we speakers are trying to push too much our audience, sometimes even with negative emotions. So when Charlotte would feel herself this way, her trainer would say to her, Charlotte, who is speaking? Is it you or your chimp? When we really take things to heart, we start doubt ourselves. And of course, it happened to Charlotte also. And as she was understanding that she needed to do something with this, together with her psychiatrist, she was struggling to find a better way to overcome her limitations. And she understood that, first of all, she obviously must take charge consciously of her inner limitations. And as a result, she decided she must give her limitations a name. And she would call her limitations Betty. So giving your limitations a name is step number 2, guys. You might ask me what was the step number 1, because I haven't mentioned it. This is obvious. You have acknowledged your limitations, and this was the step number 1. So now I encourage you all to think a bit about how would you call your limitations. So Charlotte called them Betty, but what kind of name would you give to your limitations, guys? John, and here I would need your help because I would like to know what people are writing there in the chat.
Well, before I tell you that, I can see that Roxanne did stand up and clenched her buttocks, and she didn't enjoy it by her facial expressions. So I'm going to avoid that. Somebody's decided to call their problems Olga.
Olga.
Yeah. Pessimist Pete. Pessimist Pete. I like that one. Bob. For all you Blackadder,
okay.
yes. For all you Blackadder fans. Jessica.
Jessica. Great. So guys, I hope that you will write this name down to your papers also and will remember forever, because it's only step number 2. And now I have another question for you. So was the greatest dream, the biggest dream of any Toastmasters to win what? Write it down into the chat. To win what, guys? John, do we have somebody who has answered my question?
Well, they're thinking about it, but yeah, we're coming up with what I expected. The World Contest, the World Championship, Public Speaking, International Contest.
World Champion of Public Speaking. Thank you, John, very much. So basically, this is like the Olympics of oratory, right? So Charlotte, together with her host, obviously also wanted to participate in the Olympics. And even though we can't travel now, guys, let's travel back to Brazil. Charlotte would represent the UK team together with her amazing horse, the most famous horse of Allegro. She would afterwards explain the way she was feeling, like my heart was pounding through my jacket and my legs were like jelly, so I almost didn't feel them. What to do in this situation? You're about to enter the riding arena to represent your country in the Olympic Games. Together with her psychiatrist again, she decided that after giving her limitations a name, she must talk to them. She must talk to them, calling them by their name. So she would say, "Bye-bye, Betty. I don't need you anymore. Leave me forever, please." And after that, Charlotte would pick herself up, would put her head very high, and as she was trotting around the main arena together with Vallegro, she felt like Vallegro had taken hold of her hand. And afterwards, she would describe it like the best moment of her life. Eventually, she won the golden medal. And after that Olympics, she retired Vallegro. And I must say that Vallegro was one of the most difficult horses to ride in the UK classical dressage team, but she managed to do it. So the same way Charlotte relaxed and relied on her partner, the same way we as speakers must relax and rely on our audience. Charlotte found her inner power in giving her limitations a name and talk to them. So what would you guys say to your Betty? Think about it. So basically, I have already mentioned all the 3 steps. Acknowledge, give a name, talk. What's next? And the next thing is the most important thing for everybody. This thing is called the growth zone. Because after the learning zone, we pass to the growth zone. We have to put ourselves new objectives, to acquire new skills, to take new actions. After my story with Jane, I was so disappointed that I again didn't know what to do. But had to do something, right? Because I had my dream and my goal. Randomly, I found out that one of our partners at work had a project connected with horses. And eventually, this partner at work knew a director of one of the biggest stables in Moscow. But do you think this so-called director will be able to help me? You think so? And what's your name, you say? Really? I was shocked because Alexandra, a director of that stable, was a very famous classical dressage rider of Russia. And she, together with her horse, participated in the Olympics. So really, such a superstar will help me just to find a new training, a new stable to ride? But anyway, I dropped her a message. And she obviously didn't answer me. It's okay. She's a superstar, I thought. In a couple of weeks, I remember I was sitting at work in my room, was typing something when my phone called. Alexandra was calling me by herself. Alexandra? Our prejudices about other people are also our limitations. Sometimes we think that superstars will never help us. And also we think that people who are very young and don't have enough experience probably wouldn't be able to help us. That was my prejudices. Polina, my current trainer, turned out to be Alexandra's student. And in that moment, Polina was looking for her students. To be very honest, when I learned that she was almost 20 years old, I thought, really? I had some doubts. But as I didn't have many options, I decided to go to the stable where she worked, to have the first class with you, the horse riding class. And I felt that this is exactly what I want. That in this place, I will learn, I will grow as a rider, and I will be able to compete. If I hadn't set aside all of my I will try in the beginning of my career, then probably I still would be riding in that big stage, in that big stable that was also my stage, without any possibility to grow. So I passed from the comfort zone to the fear zone, from the fear zone to the learning zone, and from the learning zone to the growth zone. And now it's your turn, guys, to make this amazing trip throughout the zones. So why not to try now and start now? Imagine that you are sat on a horse and you are standing in front of a big door. You are ready to enter the riding arena. You are sat on the horse of your life. And whilst you're preparing to enter the riding arena, just think about how comfortable you felt riding just a simple horse. You wanted to achieve even bigger results, but your horse wasn't for these kind of results, only for something very simple. But as your dream was incredibly strong, you said to yourself, you will achieve your vision and you will achieve your goal. You faced a lot of limitations, but you gave your limitations a name and you told them, Betty, I don't need you anymore. Leave me forever, please. While you were on your journey, you met a lot of amazing people. Those people helped you to grow both professionally and personally. And you understood you shouldn't hold onto their prejudices regarding your opinions of other people. And now you're sat on a professional horse, on an amazing sport horse, and you feel incredibly happy because finally you have a possibility to put on your amazing black competition horse riding coat, to put your velvet helmet, your white gloves, your high horse riding boots with shining spurs, and your trainer is here with you. And your trainer pushes that big door, and with this powerful inner feeling, you fearlessly enter the riding arena. And with all this acquired knowledge and experience, you feel that you are becoming even more of a speaker, more of a rider, more of a person. And you start riding with only one desire: to ride high. Dear Toastmasters,
Kristina, mi jinete española brillante. Brava, brava.
thank you. So we are already in our private room, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, Antonio Banderas couldn't be here, so Zorro is filling in. Just to ask you a few questions. I want to ask you, before you go, 3 little questions. When you've been riding since 3 years old, when you ride that horse, you feel like you become one with the horse, like it's just one entity.
Yes, exactly. You know, when you're riding a horse, you must dedicate yourself to horse riding through the process, because horses, they are very sensible. And I remember that when I began riding horse, basically when I rode horse for the very first time in my life, it was something like a wow effect. Okay. And I understood that this is what I want to do.
And so for speakers then, could they use that analogy of one with the horse to, when they're speaking, to become one with the audience, like they're a joint entity?
Absolutely, because as I mentioned in my speech, it's very important for a rider to be very relaxed and to direct the horse, not to order. It's impossible to order a horse, because horses are, anyway, they have much more power and energy and everything, and they're bigger. So you have to somehow be a friend of your horse, to act like a one person. And this is what I think is very important about public speaking, because you have to interact with your audience. You have to show them that you are together with them.
Yeah. So you have to be with them, not fighting against them. Otherwise.
No, absolutely no. That's why I say that both horse riding and public speaking are somehow similar in this area.
Okay. I'm a person who loves to play with words, and I was looking at habits hold us back. And I broke habits down into bits hold us back. And I wonder if there's opportunity to use that to say, laugh at these bits that hold us back.
Well, yes, I think yes, because in my opinion, every person is trying to find his or her way to go further and to overcome all of these inner limitations that, yes, in my case, it was really my big habit of remaining in the same place. It was very difficult for me to change something in my life. And
Okay.
this exactly was my habit. So I think, yeah, every person must go further, finding the best way for him or her to achieve.
Okay, great. And Kristina, finally, what question would you really love to be asked and love to answer?
Oh, this is a very tricky question for me. Well, probably something about my professional development.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your professional development, please, Kristina.
Yeah, with great pleasure. So I'm an international cooperation LATAM specialist. I have been working in the Embassy of Argentina for 8 years already. And that's why my main working language is Spanish. And I think that the greatest thing that has happened to me in my life was basically to start working with the Spanish language, because I'm in love with Latin American culture. And in future, I would love to go further with this inner love for the Spanish language, and to go further with helping people, both on the commercial and state side, to achieve their goals. So right. This is it.
Right. Well, we might get rid of Zorro and finish on a more normal note. Get rid of the bandito. I'd just like to say, so you do, well, I guess you're not traveling around the world except remotely at the moment, but you do work in Russia, in Moscow and South America. That must be very exciting working with so many different cultures.
Yes, exactly. And I think that this is what I have been dreaming about always. So I was always very engaged with foreign languages, with different cultures. It was very interesting for me. And my story with the Spanish language began when I was around 7 years old. And starting from that moment, I really wanted to go further to learn the Spanish language. And I think that this is the only thing that might make me happy professionally. The Spanish language, working with the LATAM region, working with other people, and to inspire them, because I also like to inspire other people.
Well, one of the things that I love about Spanish is when you hear it, when you speak it, it sounds passionate.
Exactly. This is it. And, absolutely.
And that just makes it very appealing to listen to. And I won't speak my pidgin Spanish any further, but it's interesting that, so you're passionate about horses, you're passionate about Spanish, and you're passionate about people.
I would say that I'm passionate by myself. This is true. Okay. And I love what I'm doing. That's why I feel this kind of inner happiness every time I do things.
Okay. And your passion comes out when you speak. And I think when you're passionate, then people become receptive and they become intricately engaged with you. And I think everybody really, really enjoyed that session. And the analogy of riding high, I thought was a fabulous metaphor with the whole horse thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And in the world of neuro-linguistic programming and science, of course, they do things now like horse whispering and trying to engage with in almost an emotional way with the horse. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Because as I have already mentioned, horses, when I was talking about the tension in muscles, so this is a very important part of horse riding, because horses are very sensible. Even though they are super big, they're very sensible to all the emotion that you feel, because when you inside of you are feeling like afraid and you don't know what to do next, you automatically tense your muscles. And as I have already mentioned it also in my speech, that riders, they don't ride, with hands like in cowboy films, like you follow horse riding. No, nothing there. So you ride using your muscles, you ride using your legs and your body and your balance. And when you are tense, you can't explain to your horse what you need this horse to do. And that's why this is very important, some kind of self-control. I would say that this is number one thing in horse riding, to overcome your limitations and to be very strong inside of you. Even though something happens outside, even though your horse is afraid because of something, it obviously happens, and it happened to me thousands of times. But you inside of yourself, you must be very strong and very, in balance with yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Kristina, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you. It's been an inspiration. You've used a beautiful metaphor to get people really thinking about those habits that hold them back, and a challenge to open the gate and push out and move forward. So I'd just like to say muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Y nos vemos pronto.
And I hope your career rides high.
Thank you. Yeah. And that we all ride high.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.